for years after that, and the poor policemen, I almost feel sorry for them because they thought they were going to have a cakewalk, and ended up getting thoroughly stomped. And I think they did get it rescheduled 2 years later. The next year they wouldn't do it, and then finally they got one 2 years later. I think it happened again. So, but anyway, a little bit of history there. Okay, but let's go on to tell more about your time there in San Francisco. Tell us a little bit about the formation of the gay games. Okay, your involvement in that, or some other areas that you wanted to share with us.
Well, it was at that time. It was going to be the gay Olympics, and a former Olympian, Tom somebody or other, is the one who pulled it together. Again, the name wound up being changed because the Olympic Committee refused to allow the word Olympic to be used as part of the name, so it became the Gay Games. One of the things they had all these great plans, and they didn't have any systems to help them find out who had called up, who had gotten tickets, who had signed up to be participating, whether there were teams, none of that stuff. So Barry and I put together some systems. Part of it was an accounting thing, a very brief accounting thing, just to try to keep track of the money that came in and went out without too much specific. And then try to do what we could to help so that they understood who was going to be involved with it. And it was pretty successful. I had to leave partway through because my business tore me away, but Barry continued with it and worked out very well. And then he died not too long after that.
Yes, he passed.
So death was a part of life. Everybody knew.
Right.
Everybody knew one or more people who had died or was very ill, or you wouldn't see somebody and people would say, "Oh, where's so and so? I haven't seen him for a while." "Oh, you didn't hear he died."
Oh Lord, yeah, that'd be horrible.
I remember one awful thing. This is a bad on me. I remember they didn't have anything. They'd have celebrations of people's lives, and then you'd go out there, and then they'd lay a bunch of balloons loose at the end, a sort of a idea that's the person's spirit. And I remember going to 3 in 1 week and
Good Lord, yeah.
seeing somebody I'd seen at the other two, and I said, "We've got to stop meeting like this."
Yes, I can picture somebody people saying like that. That'd be horrible. There were people that I remember hearing every week. You would hear somebody, about somebody else who got sick or something, or whatever happened to them.
Yep.
And
because it often could be very quick, just a matter of weeks from the time a person became visibly sick or actually got diagnosed until the person was dead. Because again, there were no treatments at that time at all, not for AIDS and not for the comorbidities, the other diseases that came along, because the immune system was shot. So they would get in, there'd be no immune system to fight, and the people would die quickly.
The cell counter, the people, we had clients with the Housing Coalition that were HIV positive, and I remember we had to take them to doctor's appointments and things like that, and I remember that for sure. And we was always worried about, and they would come back, and we'd be celebrating sometimes because, "Oh, my count is up to so and so this week," and they're blah 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 like that, and that would be good news for them. So many people lost, and sadly, under the current system, our current government, they learned nothing. It appears like some of them didn't anyway. And I guess most of us who have a little bit of education, doesn't even take a little bit of education to realize science is real, and we should listen to science, and we should, once they tell us how the problem is, it's like right now what we're dealing with now, the same situation, I guess, where people refuse to wear a mask. It is disgusting. You walk out in public, you're afraid to go out because people are not wearing masks, and they're refusing, and they don't realize how they don't know if they're even contagious.
Well, let's just look back at the AIDS day and let's talk about Reagan. Reagan refused to say the word AIDS or HIV or GRID or any of the other acronyms that were available until we finally settled on AIDS at all. There were like 3 years where he would refuse to say anything about it at all, and people died, and there was no government funding, and such. And I blame a lot of deaths on his inaction, just as I blame a lot of deaths nowadays on Trump's inaction.
Exactly. And putting out false information. You can go back and see the news clips. We have it. They showed some on television last night. I've been watching it, and it's under control. We have nothing to be concerned about.
Yeah,
blah
right.
blah blah. Yeah, and it's going to disappear. It's going to be gone in a matter of weeks. Okay.
Like magic.
Yeah, it's magic. Yeah, and it's magical thinking. That's what it's about. Unbelievable. We've had so many cases like that where it's been unbelievable. We're going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes. I want to ask you some thoughts again. Do some summary thoughts here on what you think people should take away from. They should have learned in the HIV crisis, the AIDS crisis that we went through.
Those were the days when we did not have smartphones or encyclopedias in their pocket or anything. For those who do not remember history, perhaps you're too young, perhaps you were not in a position to understand what was going on, I suggest you get onto Google and look up. For example, you can just put in AIDS and Reagan, and you can find out about his pandering to the political right by not dealing with AIDS at all. Again, he really didn't do much of anything until Rock Hudson was diagnosed. But then again, he knew Rock Hudson. They'd both been actors in Hollywood at the same time.
Right.
And there are a number of books that are available that you can get from Amazon. So just look about AIDS in history. It's a remarkable thing, and I think if you don't understand history, you cannot understand the present day.
Right, because there are so many perils here we're going into right now. Yeah. Yes, there's so many perils in our history that we're seeing with what we're going through, and you would think that anybody with half a brain could realize that I saw clips on the news that that the current president was warned by security advisors and things that the pandemic was very, very bad. And what did they do? What did they do? They took and shipped part of our supplies to China when we didn't have enough of our own. They were shipping them out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of person would do something like that? Betraying their own country. Literally.
There's an old statement, there is none so blind as he who will not see.
You got it. And then to try to blame the Obama administration for the inaction. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Those are the alternate realities they're trying to peddle. That somehow facts don't matter. It's the spin you put on them.
That's it, and it's a sad situation we're in. I'm not sure how much time we got left here, but we're going to be running down here in just a minute or two. So I want to be sure that we talk about now. We're going to be inviting you back next week, of course, and
Thank you.
segment. And why don't you tell people a little bit about what that segment's going to be about? It's going to be about your time over in the Minnesota area and your founding of what was the company called you founded? Gotts Van or something?
Well, it was called Gotts Van, and I'll explain where that name came from. It's for solo play performances, and I'll tell you more about that next time.
Excellent.
But I moved from San Francisco to Dallas, and then from Dallas to Sarasota, and I can go into that a very little bit.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Well, I think we're about out of time here. I want to thank you for being with us today. It was fascinating, and I hope our listeners, both in this area and around the country and around the world, will enjoy hearing a little bit of the history here. And that's what we're about. And this is part of our, again, this is part of our new diversity and inclusion and history and human stories that we're trying to tell from the LGBTQ plus community. So thank you, David, and it's been good having you, and I appreciate everything that you've done for the community over the years. It's certainly something to be commendable, and we need more people like you working to help.
Okay, see you next week.
Hey, thank you, David. Thank you for listening, and we hope you have enjoyed today's discussion. This has been Coastal Progressive and Rainbow Forum on Society by Trio, and I have been your host, Steve Ryan.